Although there is generally a great deal more precaution taken in the handling of fuel elements, an extremely large number have been rejected for every reactor in the Rover series because of damages due to careless handling. At the time of reactor core assembly in Nevada, generally 3 to 5% of the fuel elements received are rejected because of damages. Up to 5% of support blocks received are also rejected. The rejection of only one fuel element at this time cost the laboratory from $700 to $1,000. The loss of a single support block will cost up to $300. Why does so much damage occur? Fuel elements are formed from graphite and pyrolytic carbon-coated uranium carbide beads. These elements contain 19 holes through which hydrogen gas is passed, heated, and expanded during the running of a nuclear reactor. The positioning of 19 holes in this relatively small area decreases the structural strength of the element and necessitates careful handling. Support blocks are machined from graphite. They are used for the arrangement and support of 6 uranium bead-loaded fuel elements around a central unloaded element to form a cluster. The thinness of the support block walls necessitates careful handling in order to avoid chipping and other types of damage. Because hydrogen gas reacts with and corrodes graphite rapidly at high temperatures, a protective coating is necessary to keep the elements and support blocks intact during reactor operation. The graphite components are coated with niobium carbide through a vapor deposition process. After the fuel elements are loaded into a graphite fixture, the fixture is positioned in the furnace and the temperature is raised to 1900 degrees centigrade. The coating gas is introduced into the furnace and passed over the exhaust end and through the elements. This coating gas reacts with the graphite to form the niobium carbide coating. After 48 hours in the furnace, the coating has been deposited and the fixture containing the elements is removed. The support blocks are coated in the same manner as the fuel elements. The niobium coating, although extremely effective in protecting the graphite from hydrogen corrosion in the reactor, is very delicate. The adherence of the coating to the graphite is influenced by many processing factors, and in many cases a firm bond is not established between the two surfaces. It has been found that the coating adheres much better to unloaded graphite, such as this support block, than it does to uranium bead-loaded graphite, as is found in fuel elements. Group CMB3 of the Los Alamos Scientific Laboratory, the group responsible for the coating process, is constantly experimenting with new coating methods, and the results are encouraging. Because the coating does adhere better to unloaded graphite, it was decided to glue an unloaded end to a loaded element before coating. This procedure proved to be extremely effective, and use of these elements during full power runs has shown that the glued ends remain in position. Another recent development is this protective cap used to guard the coated end of the element against damage. But with these improvements, the most prevalent cause of rejection of fuel elements and support blocks is still chipping of the niobium carbide coating. Why does this happen? Investigation into the causes of damage to the coating seems to indicate that generally no single person or group of persons is wholly responsible for the damage. Rather, the elements that are rejected have received a series of bumps or knocks that cause no observable damage at the time, but which contribute to and finally bring about the chipping that causes rejection. Of course, one careless act can result in the loss of an entire fuel element or more. Because the fuel elements now being used are still experimental, they are going to be handled many more times than if the element design were standardized. As the fuel element fabrication process nears completion, 10% of the fuel elements arrive at end division for testing under conditions similar to those found within the reactor during full power operation. A percentage of support block segments are also hot tested. A hot test will now be run on this element having the damaged coating. The element is placed into a high temperature furnace. The furnace temperature is brought up to about 2,500 degrees centigrade. Hydrogen is then passed through the element at a pressure of 600 pounds per square inch. The test is held for various predetermined durations of time. With the test completed, the element is removed for examination. The corrosion of graphite in these elements clearly illustrates the need for the niobium carbide coating and the obvious reason for rejection of elements and support blocks having damaged coatings. Because these experimental fuel elements are going to be handled many times, particular attention must be paid to the various operations that involve frequent handling of them. When packaging the element, be sure the protective cap is in place before sliding the element into the protective tube. Slide the cap on carefully, for it can damage the coating if it is not properly placed. Always place the uncoated end of the element in the protective tube first. Even after the elements have been properly packaged, care must be exercised. Bumping the protective tubes, or even the larger containers against the floor or some other hard object, can cause serious damage to the elements. When working with the elements out of their protective tubes, never place them on a hard surface. Keep the elements in front of you to avoid unseen damage, and always be sure the elements are placed on a protective surface such as this one. The niobium carbide coating on the elements is very hard and brittle. Whenever two elements must come in contact with each other, put them in place, don't slide them. The extreme hardness of the coating can mill any surface it is scraped against, and any carelessness in an operation of this nature could cause a chipped coating. Remember, even when all safety precautions have been taken, each person who handles a fuel element or support block has the added responsibility of being just a little bit more careful when one of these items is in his possession. Well, some accidents are just unavoidable.